Welcome everyone to Unit 3, Lesson 6. Today, we're going to talk about the lead up to and the causes of the War of 1812 between Great Britain and the United States. For your essential idea, we're going to be focusing on issues that are foreign and domestic that caused the breakout of the war between the United States and Great Britain. This war being known as the War of 1812. For your essential question, you're going to be determining what the British actions were that caused for the call to war. The first cause that we're going to see is the concept of impressment, an issue that we've discussed several times so far in this class. When Britain goes to war with France in 1803, they are going to continue to use the system of impressment against American sailors. We had already declared our neutrality, and we stated that we were not going to end up joining either side, but we would trade. Neither side of the war accepted this, however, and wanted us to pick a side. When we didn't, they decided they were going to kidnap our sailors and use them in the war. The major incident that's going to show how impressment worked in the Americas and the impact that it had was something known as the Chesapeake Affair, in which a British warship tried to capture an American warship named the Chesapeake. After we resisted, the British fired upon us and then kidnapped the sailors after they attacked. Many Americans were furious, and this was enough for some of them to call for war. The second cause of the war is going to be the economic problems that are going to happen during this time period. Thomas Jefferson, who was president at the time, is going to propose something known as the Embargo of 1807, and he does this to avoid war. It's going to have a special term around the world, where it will be known as the Dambargo, because it would stop trade to all European countries at this time. It had good results and bad results. The good results were that we avoided war, American ships were safe, and impressment numbers would go down. The bad result, though, is that without trade to Europe, our economy is going to absolutely suffer, and it's going to be enough that we end up thinking that we cannot keep this going on. In 1808, James Madison will become president, another Democratic Republican. And he's going to decide that we cannot have that Embargo Act anymore. He's going to propose the Non-Intercourse Act, which is going to restore trading rights to every European country beside Britain or France. It will effectively say that any nation at war in Europe we will not trade with for the future. This will end up helping our economy a little bit, but considering the fact that both Britain and France were our two main trading partners, it will not be enough to bring the economy out of the problems that it faced. The third cause of the War of 1812 was the election of what are known as war hawks. These are politicians who wanted to go to war with Britain. In the congressional elections of 1810, many war hawk congressmen would win office, particularly in the South and in the West. They're going to have anger towards Britain for several reasons. The Southerners are going to be angry over the lack of trade. The Westerners, however, are going to be angry over Indian attacks, and we'll see how the British are going to play in that in a minute. There are two famous war hawks that we do want to focus on, because they'll pop up later in the class, some of them several times. Henry Clay is going to end up being the main figure that we need to focus on, because he is going to end up proposing a lot of new things when it comes to the country as we continue. He is going to be known as one of the best compromisers when it came to the Constitution, and he'll also be responsible for a new economic system that will replace the Hamilton system. The other one, John C. Calhoun, is going to eventually be the vice president to another man by the name of Andrew Jackson, who we'll see tomorrow. He is going to have his own issues, however, when it came to his relationship with Jackson, and we'll focus on that when we get to that unit. The final cause that we're going to end up seeing are those Native American attacks. They're kind of justified. The Americans violated the Treaty of Greenville, which had a line that we could not cross into Indian territory. Because of this, they're going to be frustrated and attack Americans. It just so happened that British troops who still occupied Western forces would arm the Indians and aid them in their attack against the Americans. So while it is not the British attacking us, they are providing the tools for warfare against American citizens. If any of you have heard of the concept of scalping, this is going to be a time period in which Americans are going to really start to see it. And it happened because the British would pay Native Americans for scalps of Americans that are killed and brought to them. This shows the number of people that the Native Americans killed. I'll tell you this, if your scalp is removed right now, you are not going to survive. So this was a way for the British to tally the number of Americans killed. All of the conflict with Native Americans is going to eventually culminate around one person, a man named Tecumseh, who is going to recruit and unite many different Western Native American tribes trying to protect the land for Native American use. The battle that will end up stopping much of the Native American attacks, the Battle of Tippecanoe, is going to end up crushing the Indian movement and is going to give us a war hero by the name of William Henry Harrison, a future president. You're going to end up seeing Tecumseh flee into Canada, which at this time was owned by Britain. And this will confirm to us that Britain was aiding the Indians. As all of this plays out, all of the tension in America and outside of America are going to build up, and frustrations with the British is going to spill over. In 1812, James Madison is eventually going to ask Congress to declare war on Britain. Many of the Federalists in the North would vote against the war. Remember, they had stronger ties to Britain, while the Democratic Republicans had stronger ties to the French. But Southern and Western congressmen, particularly the war hawks, would call for war. After we get the war, the Northerners will call this Mr. Madison's War after the president. But we have now entered this conflict. We will see how it plays out tomorrow. Thank you guys. I will see you then.